Welcome back to Horntie Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds or 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So no time to waste. Let's go. We're taking a little road trip together today, talking about something that came up in the comments that I thought it was interesting and wanted to just do an episode on this. But remember, these videos are for informational purposes only. I'm not saying anybody's guilty or innocent. I really don't know. That's for a court of law to decide. We're just talking about a case that interests all of us, and these are just opinions and speculation. So as most of you know, I get in and read the comments and reply to as many of them as possible. And you guys provide a bunch of really good stuff there. And I truly appreciate that dialogue between the two of us. This video is in response to some comments that I recently saw that pointed out something interesting that I previously hadn't given much thought. Now, we know that Bryan Kohberger and his dad made the trip from Pullman, Washington to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania together sometime between December 12th and December 16th of 2022. Now, about a month after the crimes would have happened on King Road. Now, I did hear that this was, already a planned trip, and I don't see anything wrong with a father wanting to ride, with his son on this long 2,500-mile trip. It'd be nice if he had the time to do it and, get to catch up. I really hadn't thought much about the route that they took and had heard that they drove through Colorado on their way there to Pennsylvania. But at first that didn't seem very strange to me until I looked at a map. And it does seem a little out of the way to go through Colorado. So I did the math, and I hate math. So I did the math, and just to see how far out of the way it would be to go through Colorado as compared to the best way that Google says to get there. And it shows the best route at being 2,515 miles. That's a 37-hour road trip. Now, I'm not a fan of long trips in a car, so that just thinking about that gives me a headache. But if you go the way that they did and pass through Colorado, that's a 2,841-mile trip, and that would take 43 hours. So that's 326 further miles and 6 longer hours in the car. So that increases the time by about 16%, which is pretty significant on a trip like that. So then I got thinking about why would someone go a different route? I mean, I know driving through Pennsylvania myself several times in the winter. I mean, I've chosen to take the I-80 route, which runs to the north of the other way you could go, which is through the mountains. And that is gnarly in the wintertime. I've done it before. I was stuck in a blizzard off one of those exits there. So been there, done that in 1990. So was the decision to go through Colorado maybe weather-based? So I checked the weather along just some points along that route that Google says to take. And I didn't see any major weather that I could tell that would have been going on around that time. But we know how forecasts are, so who knows, right? But, I'm also thinking Colorado, you got the mountains there. And that, as I was saying earlier, can be bad in winter. So, either of those, could certainly be an issue there. And that's not saying that there could have been predictions of bad weather. And, that may have swayed the trip, going that route instead. Weather forecasts are very unreliable, but I didn't see anything major at that time. Now, the other factor could be the trip through Colorado would have been a more scenic route than the northern route. And I could see that as being a reason. I've done that before on shorter trips, but, gone a more scenic way. They were heading to the Kohberger family home for Christmas break, so they really weren't pushed for time or anything. And I'm sure his dad was anxious to catch up with his son and how things were going in that PhD program. But an extra 6 hours of driving at 326 miles does make me wonder what other reasons could there have been to go through Colorado. We know that they made the trip through there because his license plate was picked up on one of those plate readers in Loma, Colorado, which was near Highway 70, major route through there. So I've been told that there's a lot of drugs and, that travel along that corridor between Colorado and Idaho. And I've also heard the same thing with human trafficking. And I Googled it and found that there is a Rocky Mountain high intensity drug trafficking area. And they've also categorized the northern Idaho there in Kootenai County as a trafficking area as well. So I know that some have speculated that Bryan was using again, but I'm not seeing anything involving substances like he was doing before. I mean, not in a PhD program. At that level, I'm just not seeing it. He'd only been there a few months, and I'm thinking his focus would have been on the academic side. Now, I'm not saying that Bryan and his father were trafficking, for God's sakes. I'm just not saying that at all. What I am saying is that Colorado to Idaho is very much used for that purpose. Lots of busts there. And we know that Moscow has a serious issue with narcotics and human trafficking. I mean, it's a terrible thing going on over there. Then I got thinking, reading your comments about who now lives in Colorado. Could it be the former owners of the 1122 King Road house? Say it ain't so, but it is, all right? The same one that sold the white Elantra to the woman from Colorado that was wrecked in Eugene, Oregon. But I'm not going to mention their names because I've been told that if you do, your videos can get taken down. So don't want to do that. But those of you that follow the Idaho 4 case know who I'm talking about. All right. Now, apparently, right after the crimes, they sold all their properties there in Moscow and took off. So that's kind of interesting. And one of them, apparently, we know that they also gave the house to the University of Idaho. So definitely got money to be giving away property like that, is, I'm sure, a tax write-off as well. So, very suspicious here with these two. And according to what I found, one of the former owners owns a real estate company there in Colorado, which makes sense because he was in that line of work before. And the other owner who lives in Colorado, I didn't see anything about anywhere he's actively working, but with the money he was making or had made, I mean, he may be retired now, more power to him, I guess. But he's the one with the SA charges there with a minor in Vermont. I mentioned in another video that I did on the video surveillance possibilities there at the home that these two had been rumored to have been involved in some activities that may have surrounded that King Road home, if you get my drift. I'm not saying any of that is true. I'm just saying there's a lot of rumor about that, and you have to wonder, the two guys owned a lot of property there in Moscow, and they were part of that town. And I can't believe that they would have had no idea that this was going on. I just really can't see it. I just find it very hard to believe that could be possible. So does this mean that Bryan Kohberger and his dad were going to see the former owners? No, I don't think so. I would really, really doubt that. I don't see any scenario why that makes any sense. But it does make you wonder. It's just in a case filled with a semi-trailer full of coincidences, that yet another one, to add to the pile here. But again, I mean, I don't know of any reason, why Bryan would want to go see those two. But if he had some kind of business with them, then maybe, but I just don't think so. Of course, conspiracy theorists, probably come out with some nefarious reasons why they were going that way, but like I said, I'm not doing that. But thanks to all of you that comment and leave great ideas for us to discuss. As long as it's constructive, I'm all for it. So drop your comments below. I do want to say thank you to the Horns High Club. You guys are awesome. I sure appreciate your support. And I appreciate all of you guys that watch these videos. I do. And we'll see you next time for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder.